this video, we are going to identify components of the experimental design in a given experiment. The use of a control group, the use of a placebo, and blinding. So really, we're going to have a conversation about these. So first, what makes a designed experiment? Well, the big thing is controlled factors. So whether, we'll get to some examples in a minute, but if we can't control something, then it's not a designed experiment. Okay, so there has to be some variable or some aspect of the design that the researcher actually has control over. And the goal of this designed experiment is to determine the effect of these factors, the ones that are being controlled, on the response variable. Now, let's talk about some examples because I think that helps to kind of solidify what this all means. So an experimental factor is often called the treatment. So those are sometimes interchangeable. So examples of this. Think about all of the medication commercials that you see or you hear when you're listening to the radio or whatever. So when we're talking about medication that is used to treat a medical condition, that is a factor, right? So, and we'll get into how this all works. But we can give, two groups of people two different medications, and we can see how the condition improves or gets worse or whatever. And we can see, right, we control the medication that we give them, and then we see the response to that. So the factor there would be the medication that we're giving. Or maybe we're testing out a new fertilizer, growing some crops. So the experimental factor, we can control what fertilizer we use. That is the controlled factor. And then we can see the effect on the response. How does it happen? Do the crops grow bigger? Whatever. Or maybe we're talking about a method. We can control the method used to construct something. And how does that have, what effect does that have on the response? Okay. So now, I should have made this bigger. The treatment group versus a control group. It is very important to have two different groups, right? If you just give everybody the same thing, how do you know what works and what doesn't? So the way we do this is that if we're conducting a study, and we're going to use medication in this case, we're going to say, okay, we have all of these people, and we're going to separate them into two groups. Group A receives the treatment. So they're going to get a little white pill that is the new medication for whatever we're talking about. The group B is going to get a pill that looks exactly the same, but it's inert, meaning it is chemically inactive. There's nothing there. Sometimes people call this a sugar pill, right? There's just nothing to it. This is called the placebo, right? It is fake. Now, these two groups don't know anything, right? So when you are given the pill, you don't know if it's the real pill, the real treatment, or if it's fake, as in the placebo. You don't know. But we have this thing called the placebo effect, that there are people in studies who take this fake, chemically inactive pill and still see effects, right? They still see maybe an improvement in their condition or whatever. And we call this the placebo effect. They think they are taking medication and therefore their body reacts. It's very interesting. Now, to make sure we don't have this, we do what we call blinding in these kind of studies. And that means that nobody involved in the experiment knows who's receiving what. Okay, so when we have group A and group B, nobody knows what group they're in. They just know they're receiving this white pill, and this is to help them with, medical condition X. This is to counteract the placebo effect. If I know I'm taking a fake, then it's not doing anything, right? My mentality is different. So this is to counteract that. Everybody thinks they're getting the white pill. The white pill is medication, and that's why we call this blinding. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is the double-blind study. So in a lot of studies, if we're just in regular blinding, that means the people taking or being treated or whatever it is we're working on, they don't know what's happening, but the researchers do, right? So if we're talking about fertilizer, the crops don't know what is happening, but the researchers do. A double-blind study, often used in psychological studies, medical studies, the people receiving the treatments don't know what is happening, right? Who has what? And the researchers don't know. So everybody has a number, nobody knows, and they're just checking things out. So all of these people are getting stuff, and the researchers don't know who has what, and the people receiving the treatment don't know who has what. This is definitely needed if or when the researchers can impact the outcome. This should say study, not student. My bad. Right? So because researchers could have an impact if they, hey, you have a sugar pill. Well, that's not good to tell somebody. So because we don't want them to impact the study in any way, we take them out of it, and we call it double blind because both groups involved in the study know nothing of what's happening. And that's a little bit more about experimental design and all of the terminology, well, not all of it, but some of the terminology that goes along with it.